Calling from a 719 area code. Who's this? Where are you calling from?
Hi, this is Stephen from Colorado.
Stephen from Colorado. What is on your mind?
Well, I've had some interesting conversations with some people from the right, and I guess when we talk about people like on the right from like Fox News, which we say is like the Republican propaganda wing of the Trump administration, or, for instance, Dave Rubin, who has been classified as like the lazy propagandist because his mind is filled with so many wonderful ideas, I guess. How is it that we can put that critical eye on the right and say that they're propagandists? Can we also look at the left and say, are we engaging in propaganda as well? Because the definition of propaganda is pretty broad.
Yeah,
and
I mean, I could tell you that I have very
left-wing
often...
people don't do propaganda, Sam.
I don't want to get into this argument again, but I have certainly claimed to be a propagandist in the past. Now, there's some people who have told me that definitionally left-wing people can't do propaganda. But yeah, propaganda to me is a value-neutral term. And it is a form of informing people with a specific ideological bent. It is one which is intended to promote that ideology. And that's what I do. And to the extent that what I am saying at any given time is sound, is well sourced, has some type of integrity or authenticity, people have a responsibility on some level to make that assessment on their own. But I certainly see part of my job is to also undercut or to undercut any misconceptions people would have of other people's authenticity when I think I have some evidence that they're being inauthentic or unsound or lacking integrity. I mean, that's the way I perceive it.
So do you think that the term propaganda is not actually a derogatory term? It's only derogatory when the person is factually or intentionally misrepresenting or misleading their point of view or their point with bad evidence or bad facts. Things like, Fox News saying the situation at the border is an absolute crisis because such and such and such and such. We would say, oh, that's just propaganda for the right. But when the left talks about it not being a crisis and it not being it is a crisis now, but at the time it wasn't a crisis, that would be propaganda for the left. But because factually you are right, then that removes the derogatory implication of propaganda.
I mean, look, like you say, the definition is pretty broad. It is propaganda is perceived. I mean, in its sort of more classical definition, is basically just like trying to blast out information. And I think there is certainly more colloquially and perhaps not totally definitionally, but some people's definition of propaganda is that the information is particularly biased or misleading. And I mean, I'm pretty straightforward about my bias, and so my intention is not to mislead, and people have to make that assessment. But it is, but I am definitely using information to promote a political cause. So it's not so much that I'm concerned that Fox is propaganda. I do think it's a problem to be propagandists for power, right? And particularly for government power, and not even, I mean, government, but I mean by specific administration power. I think that can be a little bit problematic almost definitionally. But, it's a semantic issue. So I don't, I'm not too worried about it. But like I say, I have no problem if someone says that I'm a propagandist. I don't really have a huge argument with that. I would just simply argue that, yes, but I I do not mislead, and I try to endeavor to make sure that my arguments are sound and my information is correct.
Well, it's good to hear, because I've definitely been called out for having any kind of bias whatsoever. You know, when I am in arguments with people, then they say, "Well, you have a bias towards this thing," and I go,
"Oh, are you arguing with robots who've been programmed by other robots, and those robots? Because if you're arguing with human beings, I got news for you. They also have a bias."
By the way, the robots will too. Remember, weapon numbers of math disruption. I mean, there's the most dangerous. I think saying that there is no bias is maybe the most propagandistic statement anybody could make ever. Because it's fundamentally
the most disingenuous one. I mean,
completely.
They're trying to hide the ball.
Someone's either completely deluded or totally disingenuous if they say that.
Well, I don't think they're saying that they don't have that there is no bias, but that we should engage with the news specifically without a bias.
It's impossible.
But that's like, I mean,
impossible.
I mean, good luck.
Which news do you pick to
you should engage with basketball without like shooting baskets?
You can't.
Like, what are you talking about?
You can't pick which news you're going to engage with without ideological decision making.
Anybody who's telling you that they're engaging in any activity that involves like news, political news, societal news, I mean, any activity which it requires the development of an opinion or an assessment, whether it's in business or whatever it is, or in academics, I don't care if it's, political science or sociology, or if it's fashion. They're coming in with a bias. And when they tell you they're not coming in with a bias, what they're trying to do is get the upper hand in that conversation by saying, like, your perspective is tainted. Your perspective is unsound because you are involved in motivated reasoning. I am not. I'm above that. But
sure, and it does come into like the conversation I get is like, well, you listen to Sam Seder or David Pakman, Kyle Klunsky, TOIT. You're in a confirmation bias loop. I'm outside that loop, so therefore I am looking at it more critically than you are.
Well, all right.
Ask for their media sources then in that case, because I'd be curious what they cite.
I listen to a broad spectrum of both Ann Coulter and Brett Baer.
I think you're a little biased on this. I'm watching Ben Shapiro, who uses logic.
And he doesn't care about your feelings. I appreciate the call.
Thank you.